What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright, guys, we're back at it once again with another volume of the Battle of the Uploader series. Now, this particular video is going to be dedicated to good old Lord of Grief. And for a lot of you guys on Xbox, I'm pretty sure you guys might be familiar with him, especially if you've been griefed, because that's basically his claim to fame. Right, he has, and basically, we were having a chat while we were having this series of matches, and he basically told me, like, dude, I mean, that's basically all I do. You know, I'll have matches from time to time, but for the most part, my thing is griefing. So if you guys ever want to check out some griefing and some commentaries, go ahead and check out his channel. As a matter of fact, he has a pretty interesting dialogue on the Hornet Ring, where he pretty much adds his perspective on it. You know, he talks about, he basically make a few comparisons with the Hornet Ring, Dark Beat, ganking, flasking, and a few others, wherein he brings to question the legitimacy of using the Hornet Ring, right? Which is a pretty good dialogue. So you guys can go ahead and check that out, in addition to a lot of the other material that he has. Now, to the extent that you guys are familiar with the channel, I haven't really done a Battle of the Uploaders in a while. But actually, before this series of matches between myself and Lord of Grief, I actually had a series of matches between myself and Warchild. He's another Xbox player. But unfortunately, my PVR wasn't really up to speed, so I didn't get a chance to record it. But if you guys want to see a good series of matches wherein for the most part I get beat down, you guys can go ahead and check that out. Alright, so what are we dealing with here? Nothing really special. I'm pretty sure you guys may be familiar with, you know, I'm kind of putting the shield down. I want to get out of my comfort zone. Alright, I'm working on improving my no shield tactics. So that's what I'm doing, and it looks like he's pretty much playing with a, well, you guys can see for yourself, a fast-rolling elemental, a chaos, can't even say Tarkus because he's using a buckler, so I'll just say basically a heavy build that uses elemental weapons. And actually, I used to have a build like this a long time ago. The only thing was I didn't really use the great sword. Right, so I think this is a cool variation. If you guys would notice, when it comes to those toggle escapes, you know, I'm starting to think that you really have to toggle in advance, right? Because I don't know if you guys pay attention to those last two times that I got stunned, but immediately after I got hit, I mean, I like hit that right D-pad probably about 100 times, and I still wasn't able to toggle out. And I think this is one of the main reasons why a lot of guys are better at toggling out of the second hit as opposed to toggling out of the first. But knowing that, I think that would just require for all of us to pretty much kind of estimate when you're going to get hit and kind of toggle a little bit before that. Right, that's what I'm starting to believe that's what the trick is to this toggle escaping on the first hit. You can't do it as a reaction as soon as you get hit unless you have lightning speed, because you guys are going to notice I get stunned on a couple of occasions, and each time I fail with the first hit toggle even though I'm hitting that button like 100 times. So I'm starting to think that you basically have to start toggling probably like, I mean, milliseconds or half a second before you actually get hit, almost like parrying with the medium shield. So I don't know, I'm basically doing a lot of practicing, especially with my toggle escapes, because like I said before, although Dark Souls is not scheduled to be out until, you know, perhaps later on this year, and at the latest next year, I really want to be prepared for a lot of the new dynamics that will be introduced in the game. But for the most part, I mean, you know, even though it just might introduce some new things, just like we saw in the can't really say transition, just like we saw in the development of Dark Souls from Demon Souls. A lot of the things are going to stay the same. You know, I really do not see that many changes. You know, case in point, toggle escaping. You know, we had toggle escaping in Demon Souls. Right, so when a lot of people talk about the glitchiness of the toggle escape, I mean, they may not really be familiar with Demon Souls because that was a mechanic that you could use in Demon Souls. So naturally, it's in Dark Souls, and I'm pretty confident that it will be in Dark Souls 2. Alright, so enough about toggle escaping. I think you guys pretty much get the point on it. Alright, so this is Lord of Grief. And basically, as we were kind of discussing, because one of the fortunate things about Xbox is that you guys can chat. As long as you guys have a pretty good connection with the other person, I mean, you can pretty much chat while you're playing. So he was basically telling me, that, kind of playing with no shield can be pretty difficult. And it's true. Because it really requires for you to dodge. It really requires for you to be somewhat aggressive. Because since you don't have the comfort of a shield, you kind of needs to be in there sticking and moving for the most part. Because unlike a shield where you could just, block, you can't really block. So you really have to improve on your dodging and your maneuvering. And actually, I really got lucky right there. I'm really surprised that he missed on that running R1 attack. Alright, so one thing I did notice about Lord of Grief's techniques, and you guys are going to notice it, he does a lot of run-up parry techniques. You guys are going to notice it's going to be a number of occasions, just like right there. He just runs up to me and hit the parry button. Now, I don't know if he's running up because he's anticipating it, because a lot of times, when you observe someone else's playstyle from your own point of view, you may see things that may be, somewhat different than what the player is doing. Like, in other words, on his end, he may see a pattern. But on my end, it looks like he's just randomly, he'll swing a couple times, then he'll back off, and then he'll just basically run up to me and hit the parry button a couple times. So, I don't know. I know I've talked about the run-up method on a number of occasions, which, it works. I think he parried me like twice in this series. But the only reason why I personally do not like the run-up parry method is because it just basically looks like, you're just throwing them out there without really paying attention to patterns, which is one of the reasons why I don't practice the run-up parry method. For the most part, whenever I throw a parry out, I almost land it each and every time, because the only time I really parry is when I notice a pattern. That's it. But like I said before, that was just something that I paid attention to. It's not a critique on his gameplay or anything. It was just something that I noticed. You guys are going to notice that a few times. Now, this was a pretty good series. As a matter of fact, let me put it to you this way. This was a great series. And actually, I felt real comfortable about it until the last few matches. This guy ended up switching off to the Balder Side Sword with the Leo ring, and from that point onward, it was just pretty much downhill. I really cannot, I don't know what you can do against that Leo ring, right? Because for the most part, and actually this is one of those other situations, because I had a series of matches between myself and Big Tada, and I don't know if you guys are familiar, but in that series with he and myself, actually the first time we fought, it was pretty good. I pretty much tightened him up almost every match, but not quite. But the second series we had when he used that Leo ring, I think it was just about the opposite, because he basically tightened me up almost every match. So, it was almost the same thing with here. Like these first few matches, he put forth an awesome display of his PvP skills, and I felt pretty good about it. But once he pulled out that Leo ring, it was 100% downhill for me, because it seemed like I couldn't catch a break. Either with the Balder or even with the Lucerne, he pieced me up. So it was a pretty good series of matches. And I think a little later on, that's when I finally switched to the shield, because he poked me so many times, and I'm like, okay, I gotta punish this guy for poking me with these R2s, because each poke, to the extent that you guys are not familiar with the capabilities of the Leo ring, each counterattack can inflict somewhere around 650 to 700 damage, right? And the reason why I say 600 to I'll say low 600s and up to 700 And the reason why I'll say that is because number one, it obviously depends on the armor that you use. Because like right now, I'm using relatively weak armor. I mean, I'm just using a hollow set, and that was a good toggle right there. I'm basically just using a weak toggles hollow set with, I mean, just enough poise to get me around 53. So I'm not even hitting anything special. And if any of you guys are familiar with the hollow set, you would know that the defense on that set, that was a good parry right there. And he got me with the Hornet repulsed. But like I was saying, anyone familiar with the hollow set, you would know that the defense is somewhere like in the low 200s. Alright, so I think I'm rocking. And actually, because this is my Xbox account, I don't have access to all the chunks and slabs that I do on my PS3. So basically, I just went and got Silver Knight bottoms because that's easy to get. In addition to the Twinkling Titanite, which is easy to upgrade it, and I think I have the standard Knight gauntlets, right, as you guys can see with the hollow chest and the hollow hood. So that's pretty much it. And if you guys notice, he just did it right there. He just basically chased me around, and I guess he thought I was going to swing, and he parried. So I don't know. I don't know if that's just a technique that he does, or if he just anticipates me swinging, but at least on my end, it looks pretty obvious, and that's one of the reasons why I personally never like that run-up technique, because like I said before, what you see may be different than what your opponent sees as they're doing what they're doing, because to me, it just looks like he's just, running up to me and hitting the parry button. But on his end, he may see a lot of openings and patterns that perhaps I don't realize I'm giving him. Right, so it is what it is. Now, in this particular series, he used 4 builds, and I think I just switched off to 2. I think in the last 2 or 3 matches or so, I end up using a shield because I got tired of getting poked with that Balder side sword. Right, I said to myself, okay, I need to parry and punish this guy, for which I didn't even get a chance to parry him because, I mean, I got R2'd so many times, especially with those counter hits, that after like 3 hits, counter attacks with that Leo, and sometimes not even 3 hits, in some cases 2 hits, 2 counters, and maybe, one random R1 or R2, I'm dead. Because like I said before, most of my builds have like 1708 in vitality, right? And if a counter will hit you somewhere between the mid 600s to the low 700s, think about it. That's 2 counter attacks, and that's pretty much all your vitality. So that's what I was saying. I mean, he definitely pulled out a good combination when he decided to use his Balder Knight cosplay. Definitely a good choice. So, from what I can remember, he started off with his Chaos Black Iron fast rolling build. Then he switched off to his Gwen cosplay. And now it looks like he's kind of using a mage. Okay, so mage, Wrath of Gods, and Pyro combination. Because if you guys see for yourself, he's using the Moonlight Greatsword. He has, and actually I tried to roll BS him, but I guess I was running instead of walking, and that's why he was able to hit me with that one-handed R2 attack. So GG right there. So like I was saying, he's got the Moonlight Greatsword, the Great Combustion, and the Wrath of the Gods. And that's this build. And the last build that he's using is basically 2 Leo Ring builds, but the first is a Balder Knight cosplay, and the second is a build that he uses a Lucerne and Giant's armor. So he basically pulled out 4 builds, and I think that's one of the disadvantages that you guys notice right there. I was hitting that toggle so many times and still wasn't really able to do it. But it's all good because every time I get stunned, it's just another opportunity to learn how to get more proficient on my toggling techniques. Okay, and that was 3 parries right there. Luckily, I didn't keep swinging because with as many times as he parried, I probably would have got surprised with a parry and repulse right there. And actually, good thing about him in his build, because he wasn't really using a lot of Wrath of the Gods, In some of these occasions, I forgot that he had Wrath of the Gods, just like right there. Because usually whenever I know that I'm fighting against a player that has miracles, I always pay attention to what they're doing, right? And I always keep in mind whenever they may do a quick weapon swap from either a sword and a talisman or a shield and a talisman. But because he didn't really spam that Wrath of the Gods, it was kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So in a lot of these cases, I mean, he gets some good damage with that Wrath of the Gods. So GG in that last match. Alright, so what do we have here? Alright, missed me with the charge attack. And actually I meant to roll, but I guess when you're... Okay, luckily he got... Ooh, excuse me. Luckily he missed that great combustion right there. And actually I'm kind of surprised he didn't get hit with the end of that claymore, because usually whenever you are in the middle of a roll, in a lot of cases, you're going to get hit at the end of that invincibility frames. And that's one thing that I had to learn. Because I know in a lot of cases, people will say, you know, I rolled away, that was lag. But after really sitting here and paying attention, what I realize is you have a certain invincibility frame when you're rolling. If you get hit at the end of the roll, like on your screen, you may think you escaped. But in all actuality, you're actually getting inflicted with damage. And that's really not lag. I mean, that's basically getting hit at the end of your invincibility frame. And I remember I kind of touched on it some time back, but I know Elite kind of said that to me once before. He said, "Hey, dude, some of those times when you're getting attacked while you're rolling, you know, it's not a okay." If you guys notice, now that right there was a counterattack, because the first hit, you know, that first poke wasn't really anything. I think he hit me for probably around 400 damage, but I can immediately tell with that second hit, that was definitely a counter hit. And like I said, these last, 4 or 5 matches, it pretty much goes downhill, because he just kills me with these R2 pokes and these two-handed rolling R1 pokes. And like I said before, that really shows you how dangerous this Leo ring could be. Now I know, I think it was like last year, maybe September or something like that, I was going through a Leo ring phase. But that was basically for the purpose of doing uploads. And, you know, ever since then, I've basically put down the Leo ring. But whenever I face one of these guys who use a Leo ring, it always reminds me of how powerful it is, because it definitely is. And, you know, just like I was saying in my counterattacking with Leo series, for any of you guys that are medium rolling, I really think that the Leo ring is a good option, especially when you're medium rolling, because you don't really have to worry about the fast speed. Basically, you just need a good weapon for which you can counterattack with. Actually, just like right there, you guys notice he rolled backwards, and during the roll he didn't get hit, but right at the end of his roll, which was the end of his invincibility, is when he received that second hit of damage. So if you guys ever sitting there and you're thinking, oh, I dodged it but I got hit anyway, just realize that you know, your invincibility, you know, you're not 100% invincible. You know, even though you're rolling, if you get hit right at the end of it, that's where you're going to take damage. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have problems with the Darkwood Grain Ring. Because whereas it's more apparent with fast and medium rolls, you know, it seems like those guys with that Darkwood Grain Ring, they can get out of some of those. Right? Because I've experienced that on a number of occasions where I'm fighting someone who's using the Darkwood Grain Ring, and it seems like no matter what I'm doing, they're just dodging all types of attacks. Alright, so enough about that. Alright, so I'm back to my Falcon longsword combination. Alright, so those 2 or 3 parries right there, he was able to get a good riposte in. And this guy's just killing me with this boulder side sword. He was pretty good with it, especially with these quick pokes. that poke with that two-handed boulder side sword, and the S-stock, another weapon that can do that same animation. I mean, those pokes are definitely dangerous, especially when you're using the Leo ring. And actually, this is where I finally decided to pull out my strength build, and I think I used this build for like the last 3 or 4 matches. And actually, I got destroyed in this particular match. I just really couldn't do anything with it. All right, so I guess he thought I was going to follow up with a spam, but I did. All right. All right, so I guess a little variation to his Boulder Knight is that he is using. You guys notice that? Those 2 pokes right there took basically 2/3 of all of my vitality. Just another example of how powerful. But actually, I don't really need to talk about that because, I mean, not only have I demonstrated in my counterattacking with Leo videos, but also in that series with Big Tada. If you guys notice, he just did like 4 or 5 consecutive pokes. I mean, you can't really do anything about that. Especially when the damage that you get from those R2s benefit with the counterattacking Leo ring. Alright. So, once again, to the extent that you guys are not familiar with the Lord of Grief's channel, I'm going to go ahead and put the link to his channel in the description box. And like I said before, if you guys like griefing videos, go ahead and check his channel out. Also, he has a few commentaries. Now, he doesn't do commentaries as often as I do, but he definitely has some cool, calm, and collective commentaries that I'm pretty sure you guys will enjoy. Because that's one thing about me, I really enjoy commentaries. Now, speaking of commentaries, there's another guy that I'm planning to do a Battle of the Uploaders with. And he is a really good commentator in my opinion. His name is, I think it's like Ferris DKS. So if you guys ever want to check him out, I'm going to try to get him on the Battle of the Uploader series, as well as Mark Mallows. I think it's like Mark Mallows. I've been planning to get with him, but you know, we're just on at different times. But one of these days, I'm going to get a series of matches between myself and Mark Mallows and Ferris. Like I said before, I'll put a link to those guys in the description box. But for the most part, I want you guys to see, especially Mark. That guy is really good with those toggle escapes and dual wielding. I'm pretty sure that'll be a treat. So as soon as I can, you know, catch him online, I'm going to arrange a series of matches, and hopefully I'll be able to upload that soon. So like I said before, I'll go ahead and add Lord of Grief's channel. Link to his channel in the description box, but also go ahead and check out Ferris and actually Mark Mallows' stream. He does a lot of Xbox fight clubs and random PvP on twitch.tv. Alright, so that was a GG right there. Now, speaking of Lord of Grief, like I said before, he has his own channel. And I'm pretty sure one of these days he's going to upload this series up to his channel. And I'm pretty sure he's going to do a commentary. I'm not really sure. I know in some cases he'll just add, you know, some of his matches to music. But I don't know, we might get lucky and he might go ahead and add his upload to commentary, because it would be pretty cool to hear his perspective on things. Well, alright guys, like I said, thanks again Lord of Grief for this series of matches. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So until next time, Martyrs Brigade.